My name's Tuomo. I'm with Shure UK. I'm the product planning manager, and I'll look after applications as well. I want to run you through PSM 900, which is Shure's latest in-ear system. And it's basically, as some of you might be familiar with our in-ear stuff, there were quite a few years in terms of gaps when we introduced the PSM system. And there were basic three design goals. The obvious one has to be the system has to sound good. I'll mention a little bit of this in a bit. Obviously, it being a wireless product, the RF performance has to be superb, especially with the ever-crowded RF environment we face in major productions today. And then lastly, the system had to be easy to use, intuitive, and so on. So I'm actually going to skip the audio and the RF part until a lot later and go through some of the features, because this is really where the PSM 900 system comes to its own. And the main feature on here that I'm going to run you through is called Q mode. It's a patent-pending feature that we've added into the PSM 900. And to be perfectly honest with you, it isn't rocket science, and I don't understand why we or somebody didn't introduce this into a product earlier. It really does make a monitor engineer's job a lot quicker and a lot easier. What Q mode is, when all your mixers are set up from each particular receiver, the monitor engineer is able to audition up to 20 completely independent mixes. So that's not just the audio, but that's crucially also the RF portion of things. So traditionally what happens in a gig is the monitor engineer will have his big desk, he'll have his own transmitter, his own pack, and along with that he'll do a PFL mix from the desk over through his transmitter and into his own pack. So what he will be monitoring is the audio obviously going through the desk, but what he's crucially missing is the RF feed that the artist on stage might be getting. And it's also time consuming to constantly be going back to your desk. He might be somewhere else, but every time you want to listen to another mix, you need to go to your desk, make sure you get all the buttons pressed in there. I've seen a few other people who've more or less try to do this just by swapping frequencies and tuning into the actual frequencies to audition these mixes. But what you can do with Q mode is you actually enter in, it's literally a couple of presses, and what you'll see what it says is an empty list. I'll give you that one if you want it. Hold it. So when you first go into Q mode, it gives you an empty list. So let's suppose we have a rack of 8 mixes on here. All I need to do is hit the sync button in front of the unit. Gives you a nice little flash, and it enters mix 1 of 1 into here. I could have labeled this to be vocals, guitars, whatever it be. I could go into my next pack, hit the button again, and so on and so forth. So now that I've put 2 in here, you see a little number, get myself some feedback there. I've got a little number 2 up, which means I've entered 2 fully independent mixes into the unit. So let's actually turn the RF on. I'm being RF friendly and I had muted the RF output. So we have a clear blue light. I'm actually now able to audition any mix up to 20 of them simply by hitting the button on this pack, which completely eliminates the need for the monitor engineer to be able to have his own transmitter. He can simply link into the transmitters of the other ones of the artist. But most crucially, now I'm not monitoring just the audio, but I'm also monitoring the RF signal of the artist. And this is all just doable on a single button press. So you're not running constantly back and forth to this desk, and you're not missing out on the RF portion of stuff. So that's what Q mode does. You can obviously go into Q mode and mix and edit these as you wish and put them into any order you want. Another feature in terms of this the setup and speed of it has been the group scan and sync. So obviously to set up wireless systems, it's not easy, as some of you may know. It's certainly not as easy as playing a gig in one city the next night, showing up in London tonight and turning the systems on. So on each one of these packs, they can act as a full scanner for the tuning bandwidth of the product. So if I hold the scan button down for about 3 seconds, it does a full scan. I'll show you here. See, it does in less than 3 seconds, there's a full scan of the entire tuning bandwidth of the product. Then you're not going to be able to see it, but if you want to have a closer look, in the parentheses it tells you how many frequencies are programmable at the moment. And these then you can individually sync into the pack. So using this bidirectional sync, you literally hold the bot in front of it, off you go. I can't quite see the lights there. So you can see from the pack into the transmitter. And now all I need to do is hit the button, and I can go through all those 20 and simply go and set all my systems up in a matter of seconds. So the setup time of setting your IEM systems is just dramatically reduced. It's not necessarily all the complicated stuff you need to do on paper. And that said, don't know if you're familiar with Wireless Workbench, our the frequency coordinating software. PSM 900 is fully compatible with that as well, so if you do want to program it into there, along with all your radio mic systems or two-way comms or whatever might be on stage, certainly doable as well. But simply by hitting the button on this allows you very quickly to set up the system, and then for the monitor engineer to actually start focusing some of the more important things at hand. I briefly talked about the RF mute switch. It's simply just a function to be RF friendly. So when you're setting up the systems and you turn it on, it's not necessarily already transmitting on a frequency. And especially the larger the racks, the last thing you want to do is be taking all that spectrum, especially you're not on stage at that moment. Could be a festival scenario, for example, where you load in the gear, the band on stage is on, or you might be the band on stage and somebody else loads in, turns their equipment on, and they've just wiped away literally all the hard work you've done. So it's just a way to be friendly. That said, I want to go back just on the two things. It's all fair and good to have Q mode and easy setup functions, but the groundwork has to be done right. So these were the first two design goals. So I'm going to breeze through these, but it is a terrific sounding system. We've gone back and really tried to make the best sounding in-ear system out on the market today. And based on some of the feedback from the bands and engineers, that we've certainly achieved that. It's a very full. Am I running out of time? Oh, sorry. And it does feature the same patented audio reference companding technologies that are used in all of our live standard performance microphones, so the UHFR series, which some of you may be familiar with. So it's lots of that widely accepted industry hardware that's on our wired mics that's also put into these. And then lastly, you've obviously got the RF side of stuff. So we do use the same front-end predictive filtering as it's in the UHFR. And some of the more typical problems that are associated with in-ear monitoring systems today are what I'd probably loosely describe as bursts of white noise that you might get through your earphones when there's a potential dropout or an RF overload when you're too close to the transmitting area. So AGC, which stands for Active RF Gain Control, automatically allows for the sensitivity of the RF to be adjusted depending on where the receiver may be at a given location. So if I do get an RF overload into the system, rather than it's overloading and you're putting very harsh whitish noise through your ears, it simply sounds like somebody may hit a mute button or simply brought down the level for a minute. So it's not going to throw the artist off on stage who's performing at this given moment. Oh. I'll remember what I'm saying anyhow, so I don't need that. Martin might need it in a little bit, so gun dead. Oh, there you go. Oh, that's all right. And then obviously the system is exceptionally linear, so we can fit large amounts of systems into a narrow TV band. So, and when I say that, we can do, and depending on local RF, but we can fit 10 to 12 single transmitting frequencies into a TV channel. And since we are in the UK, I should probably mention, with all the changes with channel 38 that you're reading about and future-proof and so on, PSM 900 was the first in-ear system of its kind when we launched this back in March at the Frankfurt Messe in Europe. So it's fully compliant with all the regulations now and beyond 2012. And the last thing I just want to clarify about it, it's actually fully optimized. It just doesn't happen to cover 38, but we've actually built the groups and the channels in here so you can go and use only channel 38 or 39. It's not something that tunes from below, say 580 megs through, covers 38, and then that spectrum is not usable beyond 2012. So it's been fully optimized for UK use now and beyond 2012. And I think that really covers 900. I mean, at the end of the day, it's an in-ear system, but it's the main thing is just the ease of use on the system and the time you're saving on the monitor engine, and in particular Q mode. It is a function that people have tried to do for years, but it's never actually been put into an actual, patented or any usable function here. So it is a patent pending feature. I think that pretty much covers it up if you have questions. Go on.
I'm just looking, is there rechargeable options? There doesn't seem to be terminals. Do you just
no, there's no, it's double A's.
Okay.
Does the transmitter have a network connector on the back?
No, there's no network connector on the back of that.
Okay, so you have to make all your changes in the workbench manually?
Well, yeah, you'd use synthesis mode and you can program PSM 900 into it. Workbench is going to tell you what the frequencies are. So the only thing you'd really gain from having a network back on is that when you hit the finish button in Workbench after it's done the synthesis, it would just program this automatically. But by having the group scan function on here, I can probably set the system up quicker than actually even, setting up the IP address on my computer.
How many systems can you use simultaneously?
In a single frequency band, so this tuning bandwidth of this is 36 megs. The marketing material says 20, but if you know anything about RF, you can do 25. So it's a very linear system. And you can obviously combine multiple frequency versions if you do need to do a larger system.
So how much do you cover frequency-wise?
You can program this anywhere from 470 up to 790. So, I mean, we cover UHF bands 4 and 5. You can even buy units in the 800 meg band if you're still in Central Europe, where they have a bit longer of a lifeline. But in the UK, we're obviously bringing in Channel 38 equipment.
List price?
List price, under £1,000, 998 system. So 559 for the transmitter and 439 for the pack. So very competitive in terms of good sounding system, performs well, and doesn't cost a lot of money.
If you take it, because it's got such a wide bandwidth that you can tune it to, do you have to get alternative antenna?
There's various options. I mean, the antenna itself it comes with just a small, one of the UA820s, which is a small quarter wave aerial. It will cover the tuning bandwidth of this as well. But if you're covering multiple frequency versions, there's all sorts of wideband options and distribution used for larger systems.
Any other questions? Carl? No,
I suppose not. Yeah.
All right, that's it. Thank you very much indeed.
You're welcome.